Dating my abuser was one of the best and worst things that has ever happened to me.
At the beginning of our relationship, I was so happy to be with someone who not only adored me, but showed me in every way that I was the thing that made him feel safe and wanted.
It was exciting to feel all of those unique and personal emotions for the first time, and to share those things with another human being was an absolute privilege.
I will never forget the wonderful times we had together.
And though I appreciate everything good that occurred,
These times are the ones that confused me the most. I think this is because I ingrained this over-romanticized version of who he was into my brain,
which makes it harder for me to understand how someone so loving could ever abuse me.
It wasn't until almost a year after my experience that I began talking about what happened.
and once I did, I realized that what happened wasn't just a bump in the road.
It was an abusive situation that started unfolding before I recognized something was wrong.
Discluding the magical beginning of our relationship, where I was constantly reminded of how much I meant to him, I suffered through incredible amounts of emotional manipulation and abuse.
Most commonly through gaslighting about mental illness,
Wrongfully blamed for things outside my control.
And dramatic mood swings that kept me in a state of unknowing fear and control.
These behaviors caused me to divulge information that I was uncomfortable sharing.
Forced me to perform sexual acts I had no desire to do.
and put me under incredible amounts of pressure to fix a family that had suffered through bouts of physical violence and mental illness.
When I was neglected, screamed at, and guilted into making decisions concerning custody and therapy, I began to feel like I deserved the negativity I was receiving.
I was taxed with keeping someone alive who wanted so desperately to die.
Making it my job to advocate for my abuser, even though he was using his depression as an excuse to violate me.
My happiness depended on if he was in a good mood or a bad mood, which made me increasingly nervous, as I was never sure which person I would receive.
And it killed me when he would be perfectly fine around others and then would turn around and make me feel like I couldn't trust my instincts or that I didn't deserve to be happy.
I asked my abuser multiple times to please stop, attempted to converse about and put up healthy boundaries, and did all that I could to make him feel loved so he wouldn't kill himself.
He took a lot of my encouragements, offers to talk if needed, other supportive actions, and twisted them, leading me to think my efforts were selfish and oppressive.
The worst part was that I became so desperate that my feelings for him grew and made me feel hope that I might get a rare apology, hug, or reward for sticking around.
I know now that how he treated me was not a side effect of his condition.
And then he made the conscious decision, whatever the intent, to hurt me.
Once summer started, I tried to forget about all that happened. I felt that what I experienced was invalid and not as serious as it actually was, especially when it came down to my mental health.
I lost a lot of self-confidence and was constantly anxious.
In order to try and fix myself, every time I felt anxious or started to think about what happened, I would scold myself and invalidate my feelings.
And this led to bigger bouts of anxiety and fears about mental health, future relationships, how my friends and family perceived me.
These things were constantly murmuring in the back of my mind, leading to a greater questioning of my instincts, multiple panic attacks, and overthinking simple comments and actions.
I felt like I couldn't trust myself, as so much of my purpose was trying to keep my abuser afloat.
And now that my purpose was suddenly out of my life, I didn't know what to do.
He attempted to contact me multiple times during this period, and I saw him often around my hometown.
I felt like I couldn't get rid of him, and was sickened that every time I saw him, I wanted to be friends again, or felt afraid and nauseous.
Eventually, after talking about what happened, my anxiety diminished, helping me realize that what had occurred was significant and that it mattered.
I now have closure, a sense of how I have changed for the better, and a deeper understanding of how I function as a human being.
I am now aware that when thinking back on what happened, I'm too hard on myself, and I know that I was acting out of compassion and to the best of my abilities.
Even if I could go back and change my actions, the outcome would have been the same.
My abuser and myself, we were just trying to get through a heartbreaking situation in the only way we knew how.
I can now say that I am happily in a relationship built on trust, communication, and honesty.
Entering this relationship was incredibly scary, challenging me to relearn how to trust my instincts.
And despite being in a healthy relationship, I still find myself sometimes bracing myself for abuse that never comes.
It saddens me that even though I am with someone I completely trust, I still hold on to instincts I had when I was being abused.
These things just don't go away.
Even though I am past my experience and happier than ever, some parts of me will never be the same.
And even though those things are different, that doesn't make me less of the me that I was before.
People assume that the abused come back from their experiences as the fearless survivors and victims that are in some way still damaged by the trauma they went through.
I call serious bullshit.
I will always continue to be me, a 17-year-old girl. That despite her experience has grown and is more mindful about how she treats herself and her relationships in the future.
What were your impressions before and after reading the story?
Well, I didn't quite know what to expect. But definitely after reading the story, I can tell that someone went through incredible pain and has come out of it, and they're a changed person.
I would say before I didn't have a very good grasp on what relationship violence is. I more thought of physical trauma, and that it was someone being physically dominant over someone else, but I didn't realize that it could be so mental.
A lot of people just assume that, what she said, that they're just, damaged and they're, fearless survivors and stuff, but, she's still herself. Yes, she went through this terrible experience, but she came out knowing a lot more and learning more about herself, which is something that I never really thought of.
I know for myself and my own experiences that I actually went through something really similar. And I honestly feel comfortable saying that now because I've had the experience to talk about it.
I've been through not identical things, but similar things when I was younger, and obviously I'm a lot older now. So it's interesting to read through with someone who's going through this stuff currently.
Especially at that time in our lives, in our teens, mid-teens. Especially, we so want to be loved, and we have romantic ideas about what that means. But also a lot of us come in with this, we attract people that see that we're open and loving, and maybe without even knowing that they pull us into their web, and they start utilizing our relationship with them in ways that they don't even maybe realize they're doing half the time, or that because of some prior things that happened to them maybe.
And I think, you just realize that, as the person who wrote the essay points out, you do make it through, you do come out the other side. There are healthy relationships to be found afterwards. You just got to stay the course.